PenaVega Entertainment Group International. Welcome to the future. This show is now beginning. Don't forget to share us and support us via the links and buttons. Thoughts, ideas, and suggestions of any guest appearances is in no way directly endorsed by the Ahn ShinAe Show, PenaVega Entertainment Group, and or the Democratic Republic of Ahn. Listeners' discretion is advised.
I am a proud pedophile sympathizer. Please, I beg you, hear me out.
Shut the fuck up! Know your fucking place, trash!
Now, I am going to slowly sit through this horse shit and have my brain rot in my skull. So let's go.
I am confident that for the majority of people, if you actually listen to what I have to say, that we will find that even if we don't end up agreeing, that we will at least be able to find more common ground than you may initially expect. So please, turn off your emotions, turn off your anti-intellectualism, turn off your knee-jerk disgust response. Let's have an honest conversation about minor attracted people.
Now, here's the problem I take with the whole shut down your emotions, like don't listen to the non-intellectualism of it, because you sound like a raving pseudo-intellectual as it is. And you most likely should not be telling people to turn off their emotions and not think about knee-jerk reactions when they're talking about people, many of whom publicly on things like Twitter and YouTube, say that they wish that they could fuck children. Not all of them do that, but those that do usually identify as maps like you're about to refer to them in a minute. Also, you should most likely not be referring to people as unintellectual and tell them to stop being emotional with their responses, when your only response to seeing memes used to refute arguments that people who want to fuck kids use against their detractors, and then you see those memes and spurg the fuck out all over Twitter, because that right there undermines your entire position about not having an emotional argument.
This tweet was said in the middle of a heated argument that had already been going on for multiple days with a YouTuber with 2,000 times more subscribers than me, who had been spreading lies and severe misrepresentations of me. I was understandably very emotional. I had gotten very heated. Now, I do wish to note that I'm trying to work on not getting too emotional in online discourse. It is something that I struggle with. As a product both of how passionately I believe in the positions that I advocate for, and for the fact that I had multiple asswipe drama YouTubers with combined hundreds of thousands of fans all making fun of me. Let's be real, how do you not get emotional when angry in that situation? But yes, I acknowledge that I had gotten more angry than is appropriate, and for that, I apologize. This is the context that led to this tweet. I had been called a pedo sympathizer as an insult by a 100,000 subscriber YouTuber, and this was how I responded. How is pedo sympathizer an insult to you? Yeah, I have empathy and sympathy for people who have done nothing wrong, can't control their attractions, and are nevertheless demonized and spoken about with the most disgusting rhetoric. So yeah, I am a proud pedophile sympathizer. I first and foremost feel the need to specifically recognize that this is a somewhat poorly worded tweet that was typed out in the heat of the moment in the middle of an argument. This tweet got blown way the fuck out of proportion, with 48 comments and 56 quote tweets at the time of me writing this script, many of which have absurd amounts of likes. So now that we've gotten the context out of the way, and we're all on the same page about how we got up to this point, let us now talk about the contents of the tweet itself, and what it is that I'm trying to say. I talked at length about morality in my video about bestiality from yesterday. It is not essential viewing to understand today's video, but watching it might help you get a more detailed understanding of how I view morality and moral quandaries. It'll be linked in the description down below. Check it out if you're interested. But again, I will cover all of the essentials within this video, so you can still watch this without having seen it. It is paramount, in order to have this conversation, that we very clearly establish the terminology that will be being used. Pedophilia is the sexual attraction to children. No more, no less. Some people prefer to use the term MAP, or minor attracted people. This is for two main reasons. Firstly, the term MAP is just a more accurate and appropriate description of the phenomena. and secondly, because of the severely emotion-charged nature of the term pedophile.
Well, it is kind of difficult not to get emotionally charged when we're talking about an extremely fucked up, traumatic topic that emotionally destroys young children or teenagers for many years, if not their entire life. Now, even if I do think it's a little bit overzealous to accuse anyone, like everyone, of being a pedophile in terms of like trying to immediately make it synonymous with child molester, that doesn't mean that there are not child molesters who are pedophiles, because many of them are. And those that aren't are usually hebephiles, so it's either a pedophile or a hebephile that molests a child. I mean, let's be honest, if someone's not attracted to someone, they're not just going to randomly decide to molest or rape somebody, because realistically speaking, the only time people rape is either if they have, like, no other option, like, for example, prison rape, or if it's just someone legitimately trying to take control of someone's life by exerting control over them through the act of sexually assaulting them. However, the fact remains that due to the fact that the data is not really completely collected, because hardly any of these people come forward and admit what they are, the figures are always skewed.
The term MAP is often employed to try to avoid eliciting the gut emotional response. that conversations around pedophilia so often arouse. People have such a reactionary, knee-jerk response to hearing the word pedophile, so by using softer terminology, we can hopefully avoid the disgust response, and in theory, this can allow us to have more intellectual and appropriate conversations about the nature of minor attractive people and the paraphilia that they are afflicted by. Child sex abuse is the actual actions of sexual assault on children. I and many others also consider the consumption of child sex abuse material, more commonly referred to as live-action child pornography, to count as a form of child sex abuse, as the creation of that content necessitates the sexual abuse and exploitation of children.
I can't help but find it kinda sad that the smartest thing you fucking said so goddamn far is one of the most obvious and fucking pick-me type of statements that anyone has already made who's not a sick fuck degenerate. So I really want to see where this shit goes, just to see how many obvious statements you'll make, just to immediately run them the fuck over with a bunch of biased bullshit you've been told by pedophiles, who claim religiously they don't want to hurt children, while at the same time just not seeking help and not staying away from the internet entirely, given all the children that are currently using it.
Now that we have made this distinction clear, I shall now say this. Pedophiles do not hurt children. Child abusers do. These groups are not the same thing. They are not synonymous terms. Let's take a moment to discuss a rather important topic. And again, put your emotions aside, please. Let's talk about the morality of engaging in sexual activity with a minor.
Well, here's the issue. Usually, the term pedophile ends up being synonymous with child molester, mainly because of the fact that most people who molest children either end up fitting the diagnostic criteria for a pedophile, according to the United States Department of Mental Health Services, or like the incredibly small minority, which is like maybe 15 to 18%, given the 3% margin of error, are people who offend on children because it's a crime of opportunity and there's nothing else around for them to control or act upon. And more importantly, why do we need to argue about the ethics or morality about someone fucking a kid? There is no debate here. It's completely immoral because the child doesn't know what's going on. And even if they were a teenager being offended on by an adult, it still doesn't make it any better because there's a lot of manipulation, there's a lot of grooming involved, there's an awful lot of premeditation involved, which means the whole time they're doing it, they are aware they are potentially hurting this person and causing them nothing but psychological, potentially physical damage, but they simply are indifferent to it because many of the people who end up being arrested for child sex abuse, they end up being examined and their brains are not wired in a way that allows them to see children as other human beings, or teenagers as other human beings. So tell me why the fuck it is that it should be considered immoral or good in any way, when these people are wired in just such a way that they do and think that.
As I explained in more detail in yesterday's video, an action is bad if it causes harm, if it causes hurt, if the action results in a decrease of human happiness and well-being. Sex with children seriously hurts them, both physically but primarily psychologically. The trauma of child sexual assault is well documented. To make this point clear, children cannot consent because their brains are not fully formed and matured and they cannot understand the full extent and the complete magnitude of what it is that they are consenting to. Children cannot consent. This video is not at all advocating for the lowering or abolition of the age of consent. That is disgusting. Child sex abuse hurts children. Now, I know that there might be one person out there who might try to argue that it is possible for a sexual relationship with a child to have only positive outcomes, and I agree. It is technically possible that an adult could have sex with a child and the child be completely fine and have nothing but positive outcomes. It could conceivably enrich the child even. However, as I explained in more detail yesterday, I am a rule utilitarian. The technical possibility of sex with children to have only positive outcomes does not negate the fact that, as a rule, child sex abuse is one that causes harm and is immoral. So even in the 1 in a million case where CSA has positive outcomes, the act would still be considered a deeply immoral one. Because as a rule, CSA is deeply immoral. Because as a rule, in the overwhelming majority of situations, fucking children hurts them. Sex with children is always immoral and fucked up. Period. Child sex abuse is always immoral and fucked up. Period. I never have and never will defend any pedophile who has engaged in sexual activities with minors or has consumed live-action child pornography. These acts are disgusting and immoral. Why is pedophilia bad? Because if a person acts on their pedophilic attractions, it causes harm to children, the most pure, sweet, and innocent and vulnerable members of our society. Pedophilia is bad. They are bad feelings to have. They are bad attractions to suffer from. But a pedophile is not a bad person for having those feelings. Pedophiles do not choose to be attracted to minors. It is not their fault. They did not ask for this. They cannot control their attractions. Pedophiles are not bad people. Someone is not a bad person just because they have these feelings. This does not affect their moral worth and their humanity. These are innocent people who have done nothing wrong.
racist, bar none. At the end of the day, however, this boy is not my son. Can't you see what it means to me? This boy is not my son. Gage Kirby is an idiot. This boy is not my son. The hate for great and never see funny. Can't you see what it means to me? This boy is not my son. But Gage Kirby doesn't want an education. He just want to go and fight. Create a play of humanity and divide us all. This might. That's the whole big problem though. Ever since I tell you this, we're going to hold him accountable and he
offending pedophiles have done nothing wrong. They have hurt nobody, and they don't want to hurt people. The overwhelming majority of people afflicted by these attractions know that acting on them would be bad, hence why many use terms like anti-contact to describe themselves. They know that sex with children hurts them. They are anti-having sex with children, many of them very vocally. Minor attracted people don't want to hurt children. They are good people who just, through no fault of their own, have these attractions. These people need our love and our support. They need our help, not our hate. But most people are not willing to have that conversation. Online, in real life, damn near everywhere, all maps get is hate, and it truly breaks my heart. The rhetoric around pedophiles is so genuinely distressing to me. These poor innocent people have done nothing wrong, and yet people are constantly going on about their murder fantasies, and saying all this horrible, disgusting, fucked up things that they want to do to these innocent people.
Now here's the thing. I will give you the fact that this is an unchosen attraction for these people, and that a lot of these people might not ever do something ever to hurt a child, and that there are sects of people who are actively against these individuals being around children at all, and staying far away from them because of the fact that they themselves acknowledge that their own attractions are potentially dangerous to kids. But with all that being said, that still doesn't change the fact that when you were spoken to directly by victims of CSA about the severity of their psychological and physical anguish as a result of being assaulted by an adult or by someone that was just maybe a little bit older than them, you say that their opinions do not matter because they are too close to the issue. But meanwhile, you are allowing other people who are even closer to the issue, having been chained with that particular disorder themselves, to somehow be the more vocal party which is permitted to speak a lot more of it. And keep in mind, the only people who are usually tweeted at with memes and death threats and shit like that are usually the people that are actively trying to promote the idea of people fucking children. It's hardly ever just Joe Schmo down the block who's like, yeah, I have some fucking problems that I would like to address, and I think I need to talk to people about where I can get help. Because let's be honest, if this dude just said, look, I need some help, there's something really wrong with me, and if they didn't elaborate more on that, people would just suggest they get help. And that would be it. There would be no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But the fact is, like, it's best to be kind of vague if you really want to get help for a certain issue. Now, I'm lucky enough to not have that problem, but when it came down to other problems I was dealing with, when it came down to my mental health and other things, I didn't feel the need to, like, take to the internet and scream about my issues, because all that does is open you up to be a fucking dartboard for other people's problems. But it's even a bigger deal when you have a really fucked up paraphilia that a lot of people tie to CSA. If you don't want to offend, if you don't want to hurt anyone, then just get help, shut the fuck up about it, and don't speak anything more about it. The end. And whatever restrictions your therapist might give you, accept them. Because they are not just doing it for you, they are doing it so that you do not hurt other people either. It's the same reason that if there was a schizophrenic with severe delusions that the government was trying to kill him, they would not place this person anywhere where government officials would be nearby, to the point to where they might be paranoid, even to the point to where they'll lash out. Another thing is the fact that you, Cassandra, in Cass's stream, said that a person who has raped potentially dozens of children, maybe even to the point to where their bodies have been completely destroyed, to the point to where they cannot grow up and have children of their own, for example, you don't believe that these individuals in question should be punished for their actions. Your whole idea of punishment was just throw them in prison, rehabilitate them, then re-release them into society, despite the fact that there's a chance they could reoffend. Here's the problem with that. They still hurt someone already. The only reason that they were not hurting people during the time of their incarceration was because they were incarcerated. And that's the problem, is the fact that you're trying to approach it as though them doing it should just be considered like a slap on the wrist. Like, we're just going to take you in. Because realistically speaking, what happens when someone, like when a sex offender is placed in a prison, they're placed in ADSEG, which is administrative segregation. They're kept away from the other prisoners, so the other prisoners don't hurt them at all. They are essentially protected by the prison system just so the prison system can avoid liability. Because let's be honest, if the prison system had a way to waive responsibility for someone's life, they would just throw that motherfucker to the wolves. And no, this is not like someone that was innocent. This is so like beyond the shadow of a doubt, 110% confirmed to have like raped a little kid. And you're sitting there acting like we need to feel bad for this person and treat them as though they still have human worth when they've legitimately destroyed another person's entire human worth. What they may ever be, what they are, what they could ever imagine themselves to be will no longer be who they are. Because they are always going to think of themselves as dirty, broken, and used. If they have relationships, like especially if it's a relationship of the same sex of the person who abused them, they might have insecurities about whether or not this person really values them in the relationship. It might cause them to have self-destructive relationships, which only cause them more problems and more social issues when the relationships ultimately self-destruct because they can't handle the level of intimacy that a relationship might have as a teenager, or even as a young adult. And given that these are the consequences we're playing with, given that these are the tolls that are taken on the victim, why on earth should the person that offends on them, the person that's hurt them, the people that destroy these children and teenagers emotionally and potentially physically, why should they be treated like human beings if they demonstrate that they cannot live in a society with other human beings? The moment you do anything like that to someone, you lose the right to demand any sort of equal treatment or fairness, because at that particular moment in time, you have decided that your desire was more important than the well-being of another human being, even if that other human being is going to live the rest of their life wondering what they did to deserve it, wondering why someone hurt them like this, and they're going to be constantly questioning what it was that they could have done to prevent it, even though it was not their fucking fault. But remember, we're like, playing devil's advocate really works when you're riding the path to hell.
In my tweet, I described myself as a proud pedophile sympathizer. I used this wording as it was in response to someone calling me a pedo sympathizer. But truth be told, this might not be the best wording, so to clarify, I have enormous amounts of sympathy for these poor innocent people who have done nothing wrong and then nevertheless demonized, dehumanized, denied their mere humanity, and I hate it so incredibly much. I have endless empathy for these people. I know what it is like to be hated for something you cannot control. Some people may take issue with this comparison, but as a transgender woman, I know what it feels like to be hated for something you cannot control. I did not choose to be transgender, and by being trans, I hurt literally nobody. But despite this, the crime of merely existing, there are people who want me dead, who have sick murder fantasies about what they want to do to me. I'm innocent. I am not a bad person. I have done nothing wrong, but yet there are people who hate me so incredibly much. There are people who want me dead. The social stigma against transgender people is nowhere near as bad as the stigma faced by minor-attracted people. So I have such a deep amount of empathy for what these poor innocent people face. And to be explicitly clear, as I know I am talking to zero IQ, pea-brained people here, I am referring to non-offending pedophiles here. Any kitty diddlers can go fuck themselves as far as I care.
Well, to be fair, zero IQ. IQ is like someone screaming a bunch of racist shit at people on stream where everyone can document it. Where you more or less prove to be like a transgender clone of Hunter Tinybone. Where you more or less spurg the fuck out and start screaming racist shit to try to upset Grinch Bear. But remember, everyone else is like a 0 IQ asshole. Also, you say that these, like the admitted child molesters, like the ones who are more or less either admitted to it or convicted of it under a court of law, can go fuck themselves. But then at the same time, when it comes down to your hostility towards them, you dial it way the fuck back. When it comes to that big discussion you had with everyone last night, where you more or less say that someone that, for example, that has like raped or molested 200 children does not deserve to die, despite the fact that they have impacted 200 different lives in 200 horrific fucking ways, that 200 different families will then be tasked with trying to repair or help this person live with, despite the fact that they have suffered such a massive traumatic blow to their mind, potentially to their body, and to the way that they will ever view themselves, or for the way they'll ever view strangers, or even people that they might trust in the future. And for some reason, given what you said here, and then what you said there, there's a huge contrast between, yeah, they can go fuck themselves, they're terrible pieces of shit that I don't want them ever to exist anywhere on the planet. And then they're saying, well, even though it's bad, I don't think they should die for it because it's a human rights violation. Wasn't it a human rights violation when they straight up admitted, like when they straight up raped or molested a small child or a teenager? Because if it is, what exactly defines the lesser of two evils in that particular situation? Is it the lesser of two evils to be a sick fuck that has, like, molested 200 children for the sake of this example and destroyed 200 families? Or is it worse to be the person who says that they should die for having destroyed so many lives? I mean, which is it? Which is the lesser of two evils?
And to clarify, by go fuck themselves, I mean receive humanizing and caring rehabilitative justice. The endless slew of hate that pedophiles are subjected to, as well as just being disgusting, it also results in more children getting sexually assaulted. When pedophiles are oppressed like this, it causes them to repress their feelings, to bottle them up, until they eventually snap. Pedophiles need help, not hate. They need medical treatment and therapy. The rhetoric that people use on this issue not only hurts innocent pedophiles, but it also creates a stigma that results in people not seeking help.
Oh, you can go fuck yourself with this stupid fucking bullshit humanizing therapy bullshit. Because, let me tell you something. If a dog gets put down for biting somebody, why the fuck does a sex offender not get killed for raping a child or a teenager? Tell me something. Would you have the same opinion about a rapist raping a woman? Or about someone raping another person in general? Would you have the same opinion if you found out that someone was guilty of like a series of rapes that either gave a few people sexually transmitted infections that could potentially be killing them, or knocked a couple of these people up with a child that they would then be stuck caring for if they can't get an abortion in a timely manner? Tell me something. Like, where do you draw the line, dipshit? Where do you draw the line between this is a human being who's capable of making mistakes and capable of growing from them, and then there's, holy shit, you did this to fucking people? Fuck you. I don't want you on this planet because people like you only contribute to more shit that goes on. And here's the thing, like, the whole... It only contributes to more victimization when people point out the fact that you're not allowed to fuck children. Well, here's the thing. The only reason that these people snap is because they don't get help. The best way to get help is not to make a big fucking song and dance of it like you're begging for attention. If you have a problem, you get help for it quietly, with the help of your therapist, and shut the fuck up about it. The only people that are really being stigmatized in terms of pedophilia are the ones that are on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, trying to promote the idea of adults being legally permitted to fuck children. That's vastly different than a bunch of people targeting someone who's like, yeah, Jesus fucking Christ, we can't be letting people do this. We need to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable, for example, and that we do not do this. Because usually what happens is, usually the people who have like the wood chipper memes and shit directed towards them, it's not people who want to be non-offenders. It's people who are fine with the idea of being offenders, who usually get the shit directed at them. I wish you would actually learn to monitor that bell curve when it comes to what the people are actually fucking saying that results in it, before you just mindlessly assume that it's all non-offenders getting shit like that. Now, are there dickheads occasionally blasting non-offenders because they usually pop up in someone's feed? Yeah, the chance is pretty good. But does that mean that everyone is just habitually going after non-offenders for what an offender says? Not necessarily. Like, the reason that these watch lists exist, it's not designed to be discriminatory as well. It's designed to keep people away from positions where they will be tempted. It's designed by removing temptation, thus limiting the chance for harm. It's the same reason that you would limit someone's ability to shoot somebody by making sure that people that are not mentally or psychologically stable are not permitted to have firearms. It's the same reason that we have gun laws in terms of people with stalking or domestic charges or felonies not being permitted to legally own a firearm. It's the same shit. It's basically like, it's sexual abuse prevention via the same way that they would prevent people from getting their hands on guns, by restricting the ever-loving fuck out of what positions they can hold.
By extension, increased rates of child sex abuse. In many places, if a minor attracted person seeks help, they are put on watch lists and shit. This is fucked up, because it deters people who need help from seeking help, and as such, they don't, and as such, more kiddies get diddled. If you fight back against the stigma surrounding pedophilia, you help pedophiles to help themselves, in turn, helping the children. If you post wood chipper memes, you are not saving the children. In fact, you are actively pushing for more child rape. Your pseudo-moralistic posturing hurts children. If you cared about protecting children, you would advocate for destigmatizing minor attracted people. So clearly, you don't actually give a single fuck about protecting children. All you care about is having a socially
We will now take a quick intermission. Enjoy our break content presented by PenaVega Entertainment Group International and Ahn today.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in a world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you wanna view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Wanna change the world, there's nothing to it.
Get it? Pure imagination. It's a Trender reference. I'm owning it now. Ugh. It feels weird to be back. I vote we make this an adult coffee. Nice and cold because it took me 1 billion years to set up the camera. I forgot how to do this. Okay, let's just start. Hey everyone, how's it going? How you doing? I'm doing weird. A lot has changed. I left YouTube for 1.5 years, almost 2 years.
Ha! Just kidding. Editing Ash here. I was definitely gone for over 2 years, so sorry about that. I underestimated how long this big and emotional bad boy would take me to finish while I was also wrapping up grad school, so I have bad time management skills and I'm slow. Oops.
A lot has changed. I left YouTube for
basically 700 internet years.
I confronted some unresolved trauma, and I got a TikTok. Can you tell? I'm so sparkly now. Don't worry, not to post or anything. I'm 29. I think that's against the rules. I just lurk in the shadows and feel empowered watching the GNC folks unapologetically be themselves. They're why I felt brave and glued flowers on my face today. So, the Trender core aesthetic of this project is dedicated to them, and the hours-long analysis challenging various forms of online transphobia is dedicated to me, as well as anyone else who finds it therapeutic.
There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly wish to be.
The coffee was nice, but let's crack open a beer. It's much more on brand. This beer is called Tropical Fun Pants. And yes, I bedazzled the can. If you don't know who I am, my name is Ash, and I've been posting videos on YouTube since 2011. I am old. a few years into making content, and I came out as queer and then later as trans. Eventually, I chose to medically transition with top surgery, which I documented on my channel. At that point, I was in a unique position because thanks to 1, how long I'd been on the platform, and 2, because of a brush I had with virality, I ended up being one of the largest non-binary voices on this site. Now, I have no idea if that's the case anymore, seeing as I bravely ran away.
Brave Sir Robin ran away. No! Bravely ran away. I didn't!
But as far as YouTube goes, I was a peek into what happens when an NB creator breaks out of their predominantly LGBT+ progressive audience and is exposed to a more general population.
Ashley Hardell.
Ash Hardell.
Fucking hell, Ashley. You are such a pussy.
I don't want to use the word transgender here.
It's so weird how narcissistic they are. They think that they're so special.
Why else would you put on this big fucking show if not to get attention?
It's like refuting a goddamn child, I swear.
Stupidity.
The motherlode of crazy.
Fucking connection.
Snopes.
Fucking big.
Spoiler. It bad. Now, if you've been keeping up with the discourse, you know that I am not the only non-binary person who's endured targeted harassment on YouTube.
Hi all, it's Milo. It is frustrating and deeply saddening that my experiences of facing an online harassment campaign around 2016 are still relevant to conversations taking place on this platform.
I've been afraid to post about myself online because Calvin Guerra and his fan base bullied me off the internet.
After Calvin made that video, a bunch of his people came to me.
He sent thousands and thousands of his followers and stans and whatever onto my channel, which was a lot smaller than his.
Small trans creators have remained the targets of reaction videos that target trans people for their appearance and identities under the ruse of making a political argument.
They said that I was too fat for top surgery. It looked like I still had boobs. I shouldn't have had surgery because I was stealing that opportunity from someone who really needed it.
They told me to commit suicide.
The result was that I no longer felt very safe or comfortable talking about my transition on this platform.
Possibly the longest lasting effect of the harassment was the fact that I developed a lot of paranoia and hypervigilance. I became extremely afraid that someone would try to hurt me in person.
Someone once messaged me to warn me that someone else was plotting on their Tumblr to come and find me on my campus and hurt me.
This has affected me for years.
And this was ages ago now, but it's still something that it does genuinely sting.
And it still affects me. I'm still bouncing my leg, nervous, to be talking about Calvin Guerra.
That was trauma, and that trauma lingers even now.
Watching my friends take a stand against the digital abuse that they and other trans people endured was healing, and it's empowered me to share my experience. Personally, I think my story is worth hearing because it demonstrates just how far-reaching and diverse hatred towards trans people can be online. You see, the mistreatment of trans folks extends well beyond any single influencer or genre of content. AKA, it's not just Calvin Guerra and non-binary cringe videos. Ye old anti-SJW YouTube might be over, but the persecution of trans folks online is not. In fact, nowadays, I think we are actually up against a much bigger and scarier kind of monster. And I'm speaking up because I'm a little worried that folks don't truly understand that. And I want to make sure that we don't fall into complacency. Our work is not done. There is still so much insidious bigotry out there that needs to be challenged. Now, I won't lie. Sitting here and opening up about what I went through feels pretty vulnerable. I hate when YouTubers get dramatic. Now, I won't lie. But for real. Now, I won't... such a cheesy fucking line. Now, but it's real. But I hate saying it. Now, I won't lie. Sitting here and opening up about what I went through, I feel pretty vulnerable and fragile. Making this video will force me to relive the time when an international newspaper called me a child groomer, when a broadcasting network characterized my book as a tool for abuse and indoctrination, when a YouTube mom publicly questioned my fitness as a future parent.
And now she's, he's telling their wife that I want kids, cute gays making babies. I see what you're doing, Ash, going back to this, oh look, I'm becoming a mommy vlogger thing. Holy shit, you are gonna get so traumatized when you have a kid.
When one creator was so dedicated to my downfall that he made 18 videos and nearly 6 hours of content about me. When a popular trans YouTuber leaked my private day job to nearly 500,000 people and platformed some really harmful takes about me. And when that same YouTuber approached me years later, informing me that his views had changed and asking for a chance to apologize. And finally, when all my worst fears and insecurities turned themselves into a book. A book which mentions me by name and which at one point you could just walk into Target or Barnes & Noble and buy. Nothing like the mass distribution of a person's trauma, am I right? I need people to know that the stakes for not challenging some of these violent acts are high. We'll dive deeper into this later, but due to the transphobic backlash that I received, I ended up developing legitimate pathology. This included PTSD symptoms and a tic disorder. But worst of all, for a time, I was gaslit into viewing myself as something dangerous. Anti-SJWs, conservative media, trans medicalists, and trans exclusionary radical feminists were all hurling vile accusations my way. Accusations which I eventually started to entertain and later internalize. The worst of these voices called me a predator. They said that my actions were calculated, sinister, and that my goal was to convert young people into becoming trans for my own social and monetary gain. The more charitable critics slightly disagreed. They claimed that I myself had been brainwashed into the trans cult.
This is the kind of crap that enables people like Ash to think that they're a special snowflake gender. She's wasting her adorable face by plastering it on the front of this social justice bullshit instead of doing something that's actually worthwhile. Like, you know, letting me fuck the shit out of her.
Or maybe my transness was rooted in a fetish or a desire to be young forever.
Ash seems to have this weird obsession with being childlike. It's definitely Peter Pan syndrome.
Some people have accused Ash of having like a Peter Pan syndrome and wanting to remain a child more than they want to be non-binary.
These voices asserted that while my efforts might not be malicious or even within my own conscious awareness, the effect was still the same. I was confusing and harming thousands of people who watched my videos. I was convincing cis people that they were trans and ruining lives. Because I heard these claims so repetitively and delivered with such conviction, for a while I started to view myself and my transness as disingenuous and potentially dangerous. I lost a grip on how to evaluate reality and my own sanity. I no longer had a working internal barometer for what I thought was true anymore. Arthur, that was right after the sad part! Wow, you just kill the moment. I'm talking about how I was so gaslit and you're all like, meow! Anyway, admitting that I internalized these false claims even for just a moment feels embarrassing. Even now, lingering influences from these messages still exist in my life. And I'm still working through a lot of the shame around how affected I was by some of these ideas. So, this lengthy exposition is all just to establish that my trauma response is still very much alive and kicking. While I feel super empowered by the recent shift in tone surrounding trans discourse, that empowerment is simultaneously cautious and delicate. I'm worried that by opening up and sharing my story and confessing to some of my personal self-doubts and struggles in the process, folks may try to weaponize those disclosures against me later. And while this is an uncomfortable reality, I still feel compelled to use my voice. You see, I now recognize that the egregious statements made about me were unsubstantiated, made in bad faith, and ultimately rooted in transphobia. They were plainly and patently wrong. With that understanding, it's time for me to move on. However, I don't think I can do that without making this series. I need to share why I know these accusations are wrong. I also need the closure that comes with having control over my own narrative. After all, as a wise YouTuber once said, because I was hurt so publicly, I need to heal publicly. Okay. So, what are we gonna do in this project? What can you expect? Well, in the first few parts, I am such an annoying YouTuber. I tried to fit everything in one video, fam. But the script is literally like 80 pages long. For self-care purposes, you're getting parts. In the first few parts, we'll explore several themes. These themes will examine nuances, which make harassment in a digital environment a complex and distinct experience, especially for trans people. This video specifically will look at radicalization and anonymity. I'll act as a case example and share some personal stories. Additionally, throughout the series, we'll spend some time debunking some of the most commonly made arguments that transphobes employ when trying to discredit and vilify trans people. Then, in the very last part, we will look at everything through a trauma-informed lens. Because I am a psych nerd, a psych master's student. Just a student, though. Just a student, not an expert. In that section, I'll break down exactly why and how an experience like mine, or Brennan's, or Milo's can be legitimately traumatizing. And I mean like rewire your nervous system and literally change your physiology traumatizing. Sounds fun, right? Let's go! Theme 1, radicalization. It's no secret that the internet has proven to be a valuable tool for members of extreme ideologies to share their views, connect with one another, and insulate inside echo chambers. As a result, certain groups and individuals have become radicalized through social media.
You're about to meet a man who says he was radicalized by alt-right figures via their persuasive YouTube videos.
Many folks believe that the YouTube algorithm specifically has a strong radicalizing influence, as it has a history of pushing users towards extreme and provocative content. This algorithm is what exposes non-binary creators to audiences that would not normally seek out their videos. This often includes enthusiastic transphobes, anti-SJWs, passionate trans medicalists, religious fundamentalists, TERFs, and more. All groups that most NB individuals would be far less likely to have confrontations with IRL. And of course, same goes for any marginalized people. If you belong to an oppressed group and you make videos about that oppression or about your identity, your oppressors almost certainly will find you in significant numbers. I recall noticing this phenomenon early in my YouTube presence. After I came out, I would vent to my real-life friends about the hurtful comments I'd get from the internet. And they'd ask, Ash, why do you think you get so much hate? And I'd say, well, think about it. Who's often captivated by trans videos? The two groups most interested tend to be trans people and transphobes. Anyway, it didn't take much for the algorithm to figure this out and start regularly placing me in front of hateful eyes. As time marched on, the number of prejudiced people disproportionately grew. And more interestingly, I noticed that the flavor of their prejudice became more and more intense. Their ideology was getting increasingly radical. Years later, I felt vindicated when the New York Times came out with an entire podcast exploring the ways that YouTube radicalizes people, and when other scholarly sources started publishing articles and studies on social media's radicalizing effect on users. I've compiled a list of links to videos, articles, and primary sources that discuss this. I strongly encourage you to not just take my word for it, but look into it yourself. Not everyone's convinced that the algorithm has a radicalizing influence, and while everything I've read that dissents seems to get quickly and thoroughly debunked, I should still admit my bias. Like I said, I really believe I have felt the effects of audience radicalization firsthand on my own channel. I've also witnessed the same thing happen to many of my trans friends, and I think there's more than enough compelling evidence to support this theory. Still, lots of links below, decide for yourself. Now, while I don't have time to go over the nuances of exactly how algorithms radicalize folks, it's kind of complicated. It's incredibly complicated. I do want to take a moment to try and briefly, like really briefly, super brief, summarize some of the history and mechanics behind YouTube's algorithm as I understand it. According to Guillaume Chalot, I had one of Grayson's French coworkers pronounce that name for me, so hopefully I don't totally mess it up. I'm sure I messed it up a little, though. According to Guillaume Chalot, a PhD in artificial intelligence and a former Google engineer, since the inception of the platform, the idea was to maximize time spent on YouTube at all costs, to make it grow as big as possible. Hurrah, capitalism! Chalot explains that the earliest versions of the algorithm attempted to achieve this by prioritizing clicks. But then, clickbait became a problem. Next, the algorithm prioritized watch time, recommending videos similar to those that folks were already spending most of their time on. However, eventually people grew tired of being recommended the same content over and over and over and over. So Google decided to revamp the algorithm once more, but this time they set out to help users actually expand their taste using something called deep neural networks. So sciencey. By collecting millions of data points, they were able to create connections to the same kinds of videos that people were already watching, but now often with more extreme viewpoints. The same topics, but inflammatory, provocative, reactionary, radical. And this worked! In 2016, YouTube surpassed 1 billion hours of watch time per day. Wow. Users were effectively getting transfixed by the increasingly extreme content that the site was putting in front of them. YouTube had finally found its way to grow as big as possible at all costs. After this, every time users consumed a recommended video, they traveled further and further down the rabbit hole of niche and reactionary content. In just a few clicks, someone vulnerable to conspiracy could go from 2016 election results to Hillary linked to sex trafficking to QAnon explained. Yikes. Or tips for building confidence to how to pick up girls to the life of an incel. And then they're on a forum and all hope is lost. You know, speaking of QAnon, quick sidebar. I recently found out that HBO released a docu-series on the Q community. Q community. That's hard to say. It should just be Q-munity. The Q-munity. Is that a thing? Documentary. Docu-series. Oh my god, HBO, the missed opportunities for puns. Opportunities. No, I'm done. Anyway, I recently discovered that HBO released a docu-series on the Q-munity in which they do discuss the power of algorithms.
Congress called in the tech giants to discuss what they were doing to prevent hate from metastasizing on the internet and bleeding into the world.
While the First Amendment to the Constitution protects free speech, speech that incites imminent violence is not protected. This is a particular problem on the dark web, where we see certain websites like 8chan and a host of 24/7, 365 hate rallies.
They seemed eager to assure representatives that the situation was somehow controllable.
Of the 9 million videos that we removed in the second quarter of this year, 87% of those were first flagged by our machines.
Their new plan was to use algorithms, AI, which had amplified content like QAnon in order to moderate and control content like QAnon.
And in episode 4, at around 47 minutes, a screenshot of Gray and I just pops up. What?
Conversely, automated moderation had intentionally or unintentionally blocked Black Lives Matter hashtags and silenced certain LGBTQ channels on YouTube.
So that's a fun surprise connection I have to the wildest conspiracy theory of the decade. Love that for me. I think I get to crack open another beer for that one. I mean, you cannot tell me that YouTube plays zero role in connecting marginalized creators to radicals when my face just ends up in an HBO QAnon documentary. What is my life? That is so fucking weird. So many people texted me that week and were like, "Are you in QAnon?" And I was like, maybe. No, I'm not. No, seriously, no. HBO didn't even ask me. Don't I have to, sign a release or something? Probably not. Though, is this gonna cause a bunch of Q followers to see my face and channel and seek me out? Hope not! Anyway, I digress. As one travels further and further down the YouTube rabbit hole, it's not just the ideology that evolves, but the delivery of messages changes as well. The tone and language employed become increasingly cruel and abusive.
And I know I made a video yesterday about why I make hateful content, but guess what? We're back with the fucking hateful content, bitches.
They're still 19 times more likely to commit suicide than the general population. You cannot find that kind of a demographic anywhere.
That's
but
insane.
We're supposed to believe because they couldn't take a dump at their preferred bathroom at a Denny's. That's why you find them hanging from a noose in the basement.
You see, given the erroneous claims that reactionary rhetoric usually holds, these people cannot actually contend with the ideas they challenge without relying on abuse tactics. Instead, they frequently revert to making fun of their targets' bodies.
People who are transphobic do not subscribe to trans people on YouTube. Similarly, people who are snaggletooth phobic don't subscribe to you.
Anyway, this week I changed my gender and went to Planet Fitness.
They mock their style and expression.
Hi, this is Ashley, your favorite trans woman.
I need feminism because I get catcalled for wearing a skirt too. My friend Mars wrote, pretty sure they're confusing getting made fun of with being catcalled. I love you, Mars.
And yes, I do think that you're a fake trans. If you have to bedazzle boy on your forehead and put a rainbow cock on your cheek, Pretty sure you're doing it for attention.
They hurl general insults.
I commented on this one and said, stop tagging me and shit, you're annoying and act like an 11-year-old.
Most of the people who complain about this kind of thing are the worst people, the most undateable, cringy, miserable individuals. Just very tacky.
Entitled, smug, little shits.
They purposefully misgender folks, and some people have even actively tried to trigger my dysphoria. Such a weird way to spend your free time. These channels also often like to find one unique individual or circumstance and try to paint it as representing an entire group of people. And sometimes, instead of actually critiquing the videos or people they're replying to, they just laugh at them.
And then this one. Shut the fuck up. I can't right now.
Just laughter with no actual rebuttals or criticism. On top of all the ad hominems and misleading spin, these channels also consistently use fear as a primary motivator.
It's now okay for a man to hit a woman. That, in effect, is what a mixed martial arts league decided when it allowed Fallon Fox, a biological male, to fight as a woman simply because he identifies as one.
You're a bigot if you disagree. Not only are you a bigot, if you bring up your children to disagree, the left will sick the authoritarian regime on you. I mean, this is the way this is going to go over the next few years.
I think transitioning children is child abuse, right?
The effect is that a generation of kids, soon to be multiple generations, have been plunged into mass psychosis. We are not merely validating mental illness, but creating it.
Convincing viewers that they are under legitimate threat from opposing ideologies. Meanwhile, the same system, the algorithm that led viewers to radicalization, also exposes them to content creators who represent the worldviews they're afraid of, and who they've learned are deserving of ridicule. Just watch Blair White's I'm Trans for Attention video? Up next, here are some folks unironically talking about their non-binary identity. Enjoy, be nice. However, because these viewers have been led to trans content only after being exposed to it through fear-mongering reactionaries, they do not end up engaging with it to understand, but instead to destroy.
Screw you f***ing non-binary snowflake. What?
Oh, it's such a broken system. In 2019, YouTube put out an official statement acknowledging issues with the algorithm and announcing that appropriate changes would be made. CEO Susan Wojcicki even felt compelled to address the potential problems with YouTube's video recommendations when they noticed that millions of hours of COVID is a hoax content was being uploaded and consumed on the platform. Although some things started to get better after the 2019 algorithm tweaks, the damage had already been done. Also, let's be real, audience aggregation is still far from perfect today. So what does this mean for trans channels? Well, we can pretty clearly see that for years, and probably still to some degree presently, algorithmically, YouTube was working to bring trans creators, various groups of passionate transphobes, and fearful radicalized audiences all together. Not a good experience for the trans person in that scenario. For me, this manifested in high levels of attention from several extreme groups. But for the sake of brevity, I'll just focus on one. TERFs. Quick historical context. TERF, for those unfamiliar, stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. Radical feminism originally arose as an offshoot of second-wave feminism in the 1970s, and focused on the oppression of women in a broader social context. Radical feminists believed that personal choices and individual achievements were not enough to transform society. Instead, they desired more large-scale, radical changes in the political, economic, and social constructions built by the patriarchy. A useful analogy for understanding this might be, rad fems saw patriarchal society like the Titanic, with cis men in the top high-paying quarters and all other genders in the below decks. But when the boat starts to sink, we all sink together. No matter what gender, no matter what's on your ticket, no matter what room you're staying in. And we can't fix it by just bailing out our own single pails of water. Rather, we all have to work together to build an entirely new boat. Or we die. Sounds reasonable, right? Yeah, radical feminism can actually be really cool in a lot of ways. The problem arose when TERFs took that general ideology, ran with it, and concluded that women are exclusively oppressed due to reproductive capability. And thus, the definition of woman should strictly be adult human female. TERFs also deviate from their political contemporaries in a few other ways, but we don't really have time for that. However, what TERFs are probably most known for today is their harmful and incorrect view that trans women are not women. I wanted to take the time to explain that because I want folks to understand that not all radical feminists are TERFs, but those who are exclude trans people from their feminism by invalidating their gender identities and advocating against rights and protections for trans people. This can include making it harder for trans folks to access care or gatekeeping trans people from certain spaces, like the appropriate bathroom. And while TERFs mostly seem to focus their energy on trans women, as I, a trans-masculine person, am making this video, that is obviously not always the case. TERFs are also a problem for AFAB trans people because they view us as women, refuse to acknowledge our genders, make up dehumanizing, gross, and uncomfortable excuses for why we apparently call ourselves trans, constantly infantilize us, and work to take away AFAB trans people's agencies over their own lives and bodies. Something decidedly not very feminist, by the way. What I think is most intriguing about TERFs, though, is that the majority of the feminism that they engage in mainly seems to work to discredit trans people. Like, their feminism doesn't really appear to exist unless it's at the expense or exclusion of trans folks. Interesting, right? While I receive backlash from many TERFs, I am not super into the idea of platforming a ton of their voices. So instead, this brings me to one of the few TERFs I would like to specifically discuss. Magdalene Burns. Magdalene started her YouTube channel in 2016, and she published her video about me in 2018, all well before YouTube started to fix its algorithm. The video was a response to my video titled, "I asked my corporate job if I could wear the men's uniform." That video was about exactly what it sounds like. At the time, I was a flight attendant for a major airline, and after completing top surgery, I asked if I could wear the male uniform, as that style of expression more closely aligned with my gender identity. Since I know that conversations like this can feel very scary for many trans folks to have with employers, I thought that sharing my experience could be potentially empowering or useful for anyone in a similar situation. So I sent human resources an email disclosing my trans identity and asking if I could wear the clothes that would make me most comfortable. If you ever need or want to send an email like this, I'll kind of share what I wrote so you could maybe use it as a rough template. Moral of the story, asking for what you want can be scary, but it can also be totally worth it, and sometimes people will surprise you by how open and chill they are. I know I'm excited for real Ash to finally show up to work. In Magdalene's response, she critiqued me for not standing up to my workplace more than I did. She asserted that the company even having different uniforms for different genders in the first place was sexist, and that was the big issue at hand. She stated that by me moving from one uniform to another rather than challenging the greater policy, my actions were complicit in that sexism. And she expressed worry for my female coworkers who might have also been struggling with the same dress code. Thoughtful points, right? Like, she's not totally wrong. I stand by my choice to vacate the uniform gender category that was triggering my dysphoria. But like, why the categories though? Do we really need them? And do they gotta be based on gender? That seems weird. Don't get me wrong, I knew that our uniforms were dated and not great. I didn't love them. I just figured if the uniforms really were that bad, then some of the women in that group of 20,000 would be speaking up. That's a bold assumption though. After all, I toughed out the female uniform for a while. I wasn't even female. Perhaps other people were doing the same thing, despite feeling uncomfortable. Magdalene's video truly inspired me to think critically about all the gender dress codes that society has normalized for us. And that is exactly how radical content reels well-intended viewers in. It manipulates concerns about legitimate issues into excuses for scapegoating and villainizing marginalized groups. Magdalene's worry for my coworkers was a guise. You see, in addition to exploring the sexist nature of gender-segregated uniforms, her video also says I'm pathetic multiple times.
We get that you didn't want to rock the boat. It's fucking pathetic.
Calls me an ass kisser more than once.
Yeah, Ash, I think at this stage we've all established that you're an ass kisser. I don't think that's in doubt. Ass kisser, ass kisser.
As well as saying several other unkind things about me.
This is an activist. Fuck off.
States that my true and secret motivation for switching uniforms is to gain access to physically comfier clothing.
But why do you have to disclose a trans identity just to wear comfortable clothes? She's describing a very normal desire to want to wear comfortable clothes as if it's like some sort of kink. It's really weird. Like, why isn't she challenging the fact that she's not allowed to wear comfortable clothes? Why does she have to get top surgery?
Asserts that I'm not trans, but rather I'm just a woman claiming to be trans.
You had to go and fucking set up top surgery, and you had to go through these hoops pretending that you're transgender when the entire world knows that you're not. The entire world knows that you're not.
Claims that I calculatedly took the easy way out of a sexist policy and selfishly left my female coworkers behind.
You still work for a sexist company with a sexist policy. You haven't changed shit. That's the difference between challenging actual sexism and being a pathetic trans activist. Pathetic trans activist. When you're a pathetic trans activist, you get thanks by your employers. When you're actually challenging the status quo, you don't. She hasn't even dared to show up in a suit yet. That's how pathetic she is. Grow a spine.
And finally, she strawmans the entire message of my video, as well as my views on gendered clothing. This is demonstrated by the description of her video, which reads, Ash Ardell seems to think that women should have to identify as trans in order to have the right to wear comfortable clothes at work. Yes, Megs, that is exactly how I think and feel.
I'm done. I've had enough now.
Remember the abuse tactics discussed earlier? They certainly make an appearance here, don't they?
That's how pathetic she is.
And all of this makes me wonder, why does Magdalene, acting in the interest of women, need to use my specific situation in order to point out the gender inequities in corporate uniforms? Well, maybe it's because she's not actually interested in the liberation of my coworkers, but more interested in discrediting non-binary identities and bullying a trans person off the platform. Rather than challenging the systems she claims to be upset at, maybe she views this as an opportunity to direct blame towards trans people, concern troll, and fearmonger. What she did wasn't even criticism, it was thinly veiled bigotry. But the problem is, when you disguise this kind of behavior as a progressive movement, it becomes particularly difficult to pick apart the reactionary elements from the very legitimate human ones. But clearly, there is very little substantial feminist action behind the cruelty and misinformation directed towards trans folks by people like Magdalene. Now, after getting the full picture, you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm sure folks saw through the facade and then wrote her off as a transphobe. No one took her seriously, right? Wrong. People like Magdalene are often positively received and have real influence. A quick look at the like to dislike ratio under her video reveals that a vast majority of viewers appreciated her message. Magdalene's work has also been viewed and publicly supported by powerful people like J.K. Rowling. In her infamous essay, Turf Wars, Rowling wrote,
Magdalene was an immensely brave young feminist and lesbian. I followed her because I wanted to contact her directly, which I succeeded in doing. Magdalene was a great believer in the importance of biological sex and didn't believe lesbians should be called bigots for not dating trans women with penises.
Fun fact, after I found that out, I had a panic dream that Magdalene and Rowling group DM'd me about what a disgrace I am to women. That was fun. Anyway, Meg's influence and positive reception probably has something to do with the fact that deep down, she makes some good points about sexism. Some feminists may feel that by rejecting the blatant transphobia in Magdalene's video, they are also rejecting the critique of sexist oppression. That is not the case, though. It is not as simple or as mutually exclusive as that. Sexism is real and it's a problem. Also, Magdalene's video is transphobic. Both things can be true. The existence of trans people does not perpetuate sexism. Anyway, this kind of reactionary content camouflaged as a progressive movement is not uncommon, and it's much bigger than just some people making hateful YouTube videos. It can also be found in widely distributed books. Excuse the midsection set change. I decided I had to take a break and switch scenery. So I'm pulling a contra and taking a warm, steamy milk bath, except all I have is almond milk. If my camera falls, I'm fucked. I promise I'm sitting in water. You just can't see it. And check this out. Glitter nipples. Glitter scars. Beer bath. Totally normal thing. This one's not bedazzled. This was truly a spontaneous set change break. Anyway. This is garbage. Sorry. This is Irreversible Damage, the Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters by Abigail Schreier. Yes, I spent money on it, but I had to though, because I really needed to read the whole thing if I was gonna thoroughly critique it. Also, my plans are to vandalize it and then droplift it back at the Barnes & Noble in which I purchased it. Be gay, do crime. Not really crime though, just kind of a strange prank. Anyway, according to its own summary, this book digs deep into the trans epidemic, talking to the girls, their agonized parents, and the counselors and doctors who enable gender transition, as well as to detransitioners, girls who bitterly regret what they've done to themselves. Schreier offers urgently needed advice about how parents can protect their daughters. A generation of girls at risk for holes in their uteri. This cover art is my gender. This essential book will help you understand what the trans craze is and how you can inoculate your child against it. So I, sadly, read the whole thing, and the super TLDR is, because we live in a sexist society where it's hard to be a girl, young women are opting out of womanhood by just deciding to be trans. It also says things like, gender affirmative care is bad because being trans will almost certainly ruin your life, most people regret it. Also, influencers are trans mostly for attention and power. Also, YouTube will probably turn you trans, and being trans is the trendiest social contagion of the 21st century.
Do it now.
Irreversible Damage was published in the summer of 2020, and even though this was after I actually started to heal from all the transphobia thrown my way, this book is the perfect encapsulation of everything that fucked me up, and for that reason, it will be examined in almost every section of this series. 'Cause it's just that bad. Now, if asked directly, my hunch is that Schreier would say she's not a TERF. Allegedly, she's not exclusionary of all trans people. After all, her book clearly states that while she's concerned about trans teens, she has no problem with trans adults. Schreier writes,
I take it for granted that teenagers are not adults. For the sake of clarity and honesty, I refer to biologically female teens caught up in this transgender craze as she and her. Transgender adults are a different matter. I refer to them by the names and pronouns they prefer, wherever I can do so without causing confusion.
Whew! Thank goodness. That means when we get to the portion on me, an adult, I won't be misgendered. Good. I was kind of worried. Okay. Here we are.
Ash is in her late 20s, and she identifies as non-binary or genderqueer, meaning neither male nor female. Her pronouns are they, them. Her pronouns are they, them.
And Schreier goes on to refer to me as she for the entirety of the section. This is a clear indicator of how Schreier's proclaimed respect for trans adults is disingenuous. She acknowledges my age, she acknowledges my pronouns, and still she misgenders me. Her pronouns are they, them. What a sentence. Pulitzer Prize! For someone who holds degrees from Yale, Columbia, and Oxford, I have a hard time believing that the irony and blatant disrespect in that sentence is lost on Schreier. She knows what she's doing. Her pronouns are they, them is meant to deliberately undermine my gender and model for her readers that this kind of behavior is acceptable. And just in case you're thinking, oh well, what if she worries that they, them pronouns could be confusing for cis readers? That doesn't necessarily mean she disrespects your identity.
We watch her tell her mother for the first time that she's trans.
Then why the heavy quotations? Trans. Also,
what Ash wants to be, or thinks she is something in between.
Wants to be, thinks she is, something in between. Okay, well maybe Schreier just can't get behind non-binary identities. If I were a binary trans adult, perhaps she would respect my transness.
Because she's so chatty and adorable and looks like a very young girl, Ash manages to make trans look wholesome. I'm gonna barf in my mouth.
Manages to make trans look wholesome? That's something one must manage? Because what? It's so inherently impure? In order to hide the deviant nature of transness, one must apparently go to great, chatty, and adorable lengths. One must manage it. And I'm glad I could be that person for the trans community. You're welcome. Also, is that like a compliment or an insult? The manipulation in Schreier is strong. She's like the mean popular friend in a movie who turns out isn't really a friend. If that's not enough for you, Schreier also misgenders several binary trans adults. She calls Caitlyn Jenner Caitlyn, and she says so many other gross things, fam, and while I really want to spill them all now, I can't. I have to wait, so... Now, I don't understand how, but if you are still not convinced that Schreier's work is reminiscent of TERF sentiments, consider that the front of her book features an endorsement from Ray Blanchard. As if that's a fucking good thing. It's not. Blanchard is best known for his academic research on autogynephilia, which goes to his famous hypothesis that all trans women are either 1. Gay men who are too afraid to be openly gay, so they transition, or 2. Men who feel sexually aroused by the thought of becoming a woman. So they transition to get their rocks off? I hope I don't have to explain why his ideas are bad. So if by this point you still believe that Abigail Schreier respects trans people, then I am resigned to say your ignorance is willful. Much like Magdalene, Schreier's concern for girls does not come without undermining my identity, coding transness as deviant, later making fun of my body, and more stuff we'll get into in the future. All that on top of openly acknowledging at the start of the book that she knows better, and lying that she's going to do differently. You set yourself up for that one, girl. I cannot help you. You walked right into your own trap. If Schreier is truly worried about young people, why waste time with these unkind distractors? One can only conclude that this book is not about genuine concern, but rather an excuse to dunk on trans people and blame them for contributing to female oppression. Moral of the story, for many radical ideologies like TERFism, concern and intellectualism act as smoke and mirrors for bigotry. These illusions are dangerous because they can be effectively distracting and persuasive. I, for one, internalized a lot of these sentiments because... I don't know, they were like thoughtful, published bigotry? They felt harder to dismiss than chud content and troll comments on YouTube anyway. However, these masks of progressivism are just that. Masks. The truth is, trans people are not a threat to women. We would both benefit from dismantling oppressive patriarchal systems. So we are allies, not enemies of each other. Still, these were the early seedlings that would later grow into my gaslit view that I was confused, regressive, and dangerous. Theme 2, Anonymity. Do you like my Thembo shirt? I do.
It's cozy.
My next beverage is called Fashion Mullet. Anonymity is another major player in flavoring the experience of digital harassment. This next section frequently goes hand in hand with radicalization and extremists, because anonymity makes attackers feel protected and thus empowered to speak viciously and unfiltered when addressing their targets. Speaking of unfiltered, if you are sensitive to abusive swears and slurs, I would skip to... Because the social rules of real life don't exist online, this puts trans creators in front of the cruelest vitriol. Anyone can make a secret anime profile pic account on Kiwi Farms, LolCow, 4chan, Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, etc., and feel safe posting their most bigoted hot takes. Not to brag, but the Ash Hardell Kiwi Farms recently hit 35,000 views, so... Oof, that description though. Special snowflake YouTuber, non-binary edgelord, non-dysphoric trans feminist. And we can't forget the tags. Believes in 100 genders. Cancer. New level of autism. Ooh, it's the blatant ableism for me. Also, I thought we established earlier in this video that I'm not a feminist, so... What? My lolcow thread is pretty good too though. It's where I learned that I was punchable. So punchable. The most punchable YouTube personality I've ever seen. There are so many people I have to thank for this award. Now, it's worth noting that Anons are not restricted to textual abuse. Some have their very own video-producing YouTube channels. For instance, when anti-SJW content was all the rage, and a bunch of folks hid behind avatars, usually like anthropomorphic creatures, back then I was regularly on the receiving end of hostility. And because I'm a masochist, here is a quick montage of some cartoons being mean to me. What the fuck? What is my life? That's so weird. I can't wait until I don't have to worry about this showing. It'll just be like that.
Oh, that's so cool one day.
What purpose is that for?
The fuck think about the children, man. Girl, whatever the fuck you are.
This video is going to be a discussion with a friend interspliced with a beer and a chat.
And this video is going to be me explaining why you're wrong, interspliced with more of me explaining why you're wrong.
There are lots of ways to not be cis.
Yeah, you just have to have a huge craving for attention.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is what we call an attention whore.
You like being a special snowflake.
I don't know if anyone's ever sat you down to tell you this, but you're not a genderqueer, dogkin, non-binary carrot. You're a female.
This bitch, right, she's a person that just uses the, I'm a lesbian card, you know, love me, I'm a lesbian, yeah, love me, woo, I'm unique and different. Shut up!
I haven't done a video on Ash Mardell in so long, her fucking name has changed. Seriously, she got married to a girl with ultra low standards and so changed her name.
When somebody with that much social influence goes out of their way to talk about just how dumb they think you are, it's scary.
Ooh, it's skirties. Do me a favor, grow some balls.
If you want to go over to their channel and express why you disagree with their views, that's fine, but please remain respectful and constructive.
Look, I'm not gonna take the time in every video to go, hey trolls, please don't go be assholes in this person's comment section.
Anyone can fucking make a response video to you and curse if they want to.
Well, that's all the Ashley Mardell I can take for today. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go drink bleach and blow my
Okay, so I know that 2016, 2017 was basically like internet centuries ago. But during this era, when the anti-SJW genre was in its heyday, this was another radical group that aggressively latched on to me. It is wild how emboldened anonymity can make some people feel. I had this one illustration of a dragon who felt so passionate about criticizing me that he made 18 contemptuous Ash Hardell themed videos. They were even neatly organized in this quaint playlist for your viewing convenience. How nice. And in true Aquarius fashion, like a little robot gathering intel, I cannot help but be morbidly curious about the folks who dislike me, and so I checked things out and did some math. All of this dragon's videos about me add up to 5 hours and 54 minutes of anti-Ash content. Oh! In case you didn't know, that's a lot. That is lengthier than the longest Lord of the Rings film. Smaug obviously felt very strongly about my existence and was not afraid to speak his mind. Or at least, I thought so, until his anonymity was softly threatened. You see, years ago, MTV actually approached me about a new show they were producing. It was about introducing internet trolls to their trollees. They asked if I had any trolls, and since I always felt pretty weirded out by Charizard's extensive coverage of me, I directed MTV to his channel. I really thought he might say yes. After all, it would be a chance to explain to a much wider audience about the ways in which Ash is very bad. But because production would have required him to reveal his face, he declined. Now, I respected Spyro's refusal, but it made it clear to me that my troll derived most of his power from his mask. And quick confession before we move on. So, the dragon depicted in this video is actually just a visual likeness that I commissioned. I did this and blacked out the person's name in screenshots because I'd like to give him an out if he wants. If Toothless ever decides to change and delete the hateful videos he made about me and everyone else he made videos about, I would appreciate that. He's also a smaller channel than I am. If in the future Thordak decides to move in a more loving and accepting direction, as well as exercise much better platform responsibility, then I don't want this video following Mushu around forever. Also, please, if you do happen to stumble across this person's channel, do not be unkind or cruel. Do not harass him. After all, that would be hecka hypocritical, right? A big bad, a no-no, do not do. Anyway, beyond emboldening folks, it's also important to consider that anonymity makes it much harder to hold attackers accountable for more serious actions like hate speech, threats of violence, and doxing.
And don't even get me started on that hate speech bullshit. You've cried wolf so many times that people are just praying for that fucking wolf to show up. So why don't you take your hate speech and shove it up your ass?
Without the fear of consequences looming over them, these actions become more and more frequent. When we think about trans people specifically, we need to remember just how dangerous doxing can be. It can reveal dead names, out-closeted or stealth people, and it can make trans folks vulnerable to violence or disownment in their real lives. While my most sensitive information has never been successfully leaked online, someone did once, with the help of their followers, discover and non-consensually share my private day job. 500,000 people learned that secret, and I was pretty worried about transphobes harassing my employer or getting me fired. I've already made a video about that though, it's old news. So to recap, radicalization and anonymity. Online, these things work to put trans creators in front of the worst people, unafraid to say the worst things. They also expose trans people to an impressive range of stylistic abuse. As you saw, some of the transphobia I endured had real intellectual, progressive, academic vibes.
As Ash Hardell is a subscriber to queer ideology, it hasn't occurred to her to unite with other female co-workers against this sexist policy.
And some...
Fucking hell, look at her face! She looks like an old lady picking up cat shit!
Did not. Anyway, that was my early experience as an LGBT plus person on YouTube. A lot of mean folks saying mean stuff in 100 different mean ways. And honestly, while it didn't feel great, it was manageable. My first few years online, I maintained a pretty thick skin. I wrote TERFs and other radical groups off as ignorant, and I thought that cartoon anti-SJWs were just trollololololi. At that point, I was doing okay. I had no trauma symptoms, no tic disorder, no serious considerations of going back in the closet and socially detransitioning. So I was good. Then of course everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. I'm just kidding, but things did change when I went super viral. I hope all of you, enjoyed that. Stay tuned for next time when my backlash makes its way to international newspapers and television programs.
This intermission has now ended. Enjoy the rest of the show.
acceptable target, then you can post death threats and murder fantasies about to fuel your sick, psychotic ego. Please go fuck yourselves, you horrible pieces of subhuman shit!
Do me a favor, Cam dipshit. How about instead of spurging the fuck out and acting like you give any degree of a shit about the problem, you should probably realize that the reason restrictions are placed on particular job outlets or particular locations is because people are aware that this person's temptation could make them a greater threat. People can get help quietly. They don't have to sit there and basically moral fag about whether or not they're getting help for X, Y, and Z. They can do it quietly within the privacy of their own homes. No one will track them down over them getting help about something that only they and their therapist know about. More importantly, is it better to be on a watch list so that you can deal with your problems in a responsible and safe, constructive way? Or is it better to go unchecked and eventually do something when you believe you can no longer keep yourself in check? Because that seems like a pretty big gamble to play with, considering the potential fallout of such an event. Also, the only people that are really getting hit with the wood chipper memes are usually people who are actively and openly trying to condone people engaging in relationships with these minors. So I would like it if you would actually learn why people are reacting so negatively, instead of trying to screech and ree like your grand posturing somehow has any point. And here's the thing, if people really don't care about children, what about the people who have siblings or family who are CSA survivors? What about the people who were CSA victims as children themselves? Do they not care about children because they are concerned that someone that they know could go through what they went through, or could go through someone that they also know went through? I mean, tell me. You keep saying that everyone else is morally posturing. You keep saying that it's all a series of moral fagging. But when it comes down to it, you're the biggest moral fag in the room, because you're the one constantly saying that violence is inexcusable. But then at the same time, you refer to people who openly demonstrate hostility towards people who actively campaign for support of child molestation. And then you're trying to sit there and say that the people that are against it and poking fun at it and mocking these people are somehow subhuman, but not the people who are publicly trying to champion it. Okay then.
Pedophiles are the most marginalized people in our society. Before you get angry at me for saying that, actually think about it. Because I can damn near guarantee that you don't actually disagree. Whether or not you may personally think their marginalization is deserved, you cannot deny that they are the group that by far experiences the most of it. Minor attracted people are the most marginalized, persecuted, and actively discriminated against people. Fact. Period. You surely cannot deny that fact, but what you might try to argue is that their persecution is deserved. And I would have to ask you to explain yourself, because generally speaking, saying that a group's persecution is actually the righteous thing to do, it doesn't normally lead in good directions.
So what you're saying is that if someone has a particular set of behaviors that can make them a greater threat to someone or something, we should just completely ignore it and just let it go by the wayside, to the point to where we do nothing at all to potentially ensure that the safety of whomever's involved is kept at the highest priority. So what happens if one of these people who seems to be keeping themselves together snaps and does molest a kid? What's that mean then? Does it mean that does it mean that we were right the whole time and that you get proven to be wrong and stupid like everyone already thinks? Or are you just going to sit there and ree at the top of your goddamn lungs and essentially piss and moan without actually saying anything of value? Another thing, trying to suggest that people that don't agree with the idea of someone who could rape children being around children is somehow similar to Nazism, it isn't. Because Nazism was based upon Hitler needing to scapegoat the Jewish people for Germany's poor post-World I economy. That was not the same fucking thing as finding a group of people who genuinely have something wrong with them that could cause them to hurt somebody else. Would you say the same thing, for example, with about schizophrenics, who have like potentially the danger of being a risk to the public if they are not properly medicated or kept in check with therapy and other things? Because if you would argue that schizophrenics need to be medicated and monitored, the same thing goes for pedophiles, offending or not. Also, one little funny bit about this, you shit for brains, is the same types of people who use that argument when it comes to equating, like, people not wanting pedophiles around children or hebophiles around teenagers. The same people that use that argument are actual pro-contact pedophiles. That's right, the same people who you entirely disagree with every single one of their stances, practically, are the same people who use that stupid fucking false equivalency. Because that's what it is. It's a false equivalence. You're trying to say that anyone at all that disagrees with pedophiles being around children is the same as Adolf Hitler. Last time I checked, being against people being in the proximity of those who they could rape or molest was not some sort of genocide bullshit. It was common fucking sense. It's the same reason that you wouldn't want a rapist around a bunch of women who are paralyzed and blind. You're more or less preventing a perfect storm where this situation could happen. Now here's the thing. Not all of them will molest children, but that doesn't mean that every single one of them is going to have that indefinite self-control and that iron will to prevent themselves from doing it. And that is the greatest concern that people have. It is not a matter of, Nazi. It's, we just don't want to take that risk, because that is a big gamble we're playing with, and we're not going to play with other people's lives like it's a fucking game of Sims. Because unlike Sims, you can't scrub and restart if shit goes horribly wrong. You are stuck with the consequences forever. The sooner you learn to accept reality, instead of acting like everything's a funny-duddy fucking Disney cartoon, the better. I know you believe in giant magical sky wizards, but the fact is that in the real world, there are real consequences, and real inaction will cause more of them.
So you have a lot of work ahead of you to try to justify as active persecution. But as the mature and rational thinker I am, let us now engage with some of the counter-arguments. Pedophiles are persecuted because they want to hurt people. Wrong! No, not true! Most pedophiles do not in fact want to hurt people. They know that sex with minors is bad. You're full of shit, Cass! I've heard pedos going on about how kids can consent, and that kitty diddling is good actually, and how we should abolish the age of consent. These people do want to fuck kids, and they do want to cause hurt and harm. Okay, well, let's talk about this then, shall we? Why do some pedophiles call for things like this? Why is it that some pedos are genuinely pro-kitty diddling? Because of the hate that pedophiles face in all corners of society, they often end up retreating into their little niche communities. Many people, when they first find themselves in these spaces, are vehemently anti-contact, and a great many are genuinely disgusted by their own attractions. In these communities, minor-attracted people find a sense of mutual understanding. They are accepted as who they are, and they are supported. Around every corner, these people face hate. The internet is full of wood chipper memes, but in these map communities, they are not hated. People don't want to kill them. People aren't actively posting death threats and murder fantasies. They are understood. They are loved. The sense of community is huge, and I cannot blame people for gravitating towards these spaces. I have popped my head in and looked at some of the interactions between some of these people, and you might hate me for saying this, but so much of it was unironically wholesome and genuinely heartwarming. These are not bad people. They just suffer from unfortunate attractions. So as much as it may seem like I support these spaces, I don't actually know if I do. So far I have mostly sung their praises, but there are some serious issues with them that I feel need to be acknowledged and addressed. For better or worse, worse. If you get a group of pedophiles together, they will inevitably horny post about children. Many of the minor-attracted people who are disgusted by their attractions, once around this sort of environment for an extended period of time, find themselves getting used to it. They become acclimatized to the horny posting. It becomes normalized to them. They find themselves more comfortable with their attractions, and they become pro-pedophilia. Now, to be clear, when I say pro-pedophilia, I don't mean pro-CSA, although some do go on to become so accepting of themselves that they may sometimes delude themselves into that position. But no, rather what I mean is that they no longer view pedophilia as a bad thing. I have mixed feelings about this. On one hand, I don't want people to hate themselves for something they can't control, but on the other hand, if they become comfortable with their pedophilia, they are less likely to seek medical help and therapy. In the majority of situations, this is most likely not an issue. However, the more pedophiles are left untreated, the more likely that it is that one of them might snap and fuck up. And when pedophiles fuck up, that's kind of a big deal. Because, as established, child sex abuse is bad. Like, very, very bad, in fact.
Did you really need to strawman the ever-loving fuck out of your arguments? Hardly anyone says that people with that attraction are just automatically rigged to rape children. The concerns people bring forward is that they could do it if they were in the wrong situation and provided ample opportunity. That is not the same thing as them suggesting that they are automatically going to do it, but it is suggesting that it's just too big of a risk to ignore. Another thing, strawmanning other people's positions isn't going to aid in you looking better than you already do. Because it's basically you shooting your own kneecaps off after you've lit yourself on fire and thrown yourself down a flight of stairs. Another problem is the fact that I don't understand why you're kind of snickering and giggling about this, like this is somehow amusing, when this is a very, very, very serious fucking issue that needs to be brought to people's attention. It just sounds like you're sounding more and more disingenuous every time you get on the edge of snickering or laughing about it. But then again, I am talking about the same motherfucker who basically lost their shit at Grinch and said that his ethnicity automatically made his skull inferior, therefore made him less intelligent. Like, another problem is just the fact that people can get help in private. Like, you don't have to sit there and talk about what your problem is to, like, dozens of people on the internet when you know for a fact there's something wrong with you that you want to address and handle. Because realistically, the best way to do it is not to go on the internet and screech at people on Twitter about it and hope that people will empathize with you. The best thing to do is to go in private to your therapist, where they might be able to hook you up with support groups and people who can actually help you. They do the same thing when it comes to drug dependency. They do the same thing when it comes to people struggling with self-harm and suicidal ideations. If they can help those people, they can help these people. But the fact is, a person has to be willing to take the first step. It is not everyone else's job to thrust the therapist in your face and say, here, they'll treat you now. Because it's entirely up to the individual to be willing to take the first steps and make that happen.
There is a difference between destigmatization and normalization. I fear that normalization could potentially, inadvertently, lead to more children getting assaulted, but I'm not really sure. Another potential issue with these communities is the corroding effect of the genuine bad eggs. As much as I've avoided talking about it in this video, there are genuinely a minority of maps that are pro-kitty diddling, and in these communities, these individuals can act as a seriously corrupting force. Being around these psychos can trick innocent pedophiles into adopting horrendous positions. These communities do a lot of good, but they also normalize the feelings to a degree that is greater than what I'm comfortable with, and they lead to bad eggs corrupting innocent maps. So what do we do about it? Well, if you want to avoid this, the solution is simple. Broader social acceptance and destigmatization of minor attracted people. Maps retreat into these communities because they face active persecution and vile hate everywhere else. If we can change the culture to not hate maps so much, they won't feel the need to form these communities, and the bad eggs won't be given the opportunity to corrupt the others. Destigmatization of non-offending, anti-contact pedophiles results in them being less likely to be radicalized to the fucked up positions that the minority of genuine sickos hold. I do get rather emotional when talking about this topic. The rhetoric around this issue is so genuinely heartbreaking. It is truly distressing, the things that people say that they want to do to these poor innocent pedophiles. It's fucked up. Y'all fucked! I acknowledge that in some of the arguments I was having on Twitter, I got more emotional than I should have. So if anyone from Twitter is watching this, I apologize for my conduct. But it's hard to not get emotional when you're getting absolutely dogpiled and getting as many death threats and fucking everything that I was. I do just want to give a quick thank you though to two YouTubers who came to my defense during this whole ordeal, Mouthy Infidel and Hunter Avalon.
Right, because I'm sure Mr. Debate Me Bro had such an incredibly in-depth and nuanced understanding of it, and isn't just saying it to fly against the grain, just so it'll create controversy and notoriety, thus increasing the longevity of his dying YouTube channel. I mean, it was bad enough that he shot his own subscriber count in the head by openly flipping half of his fucking subs off by switching his entire political leanings for the sake of going with the times. Because let's be honest here, Hunter didn't change because his views changed. He changed because the money started to dry up when people were already starting to flake from his points of view, considering how he was like an incredibly radical right-wing drone. Now he's an incredibly insane left-wing drone. That's the problem. Like, he can't find a place to sit that involves nuance. He sits wherever he thinks it'll generate controversy and in turn generating money. Like, there's a reason he defends people like you, Cassandra. It's because he knows for a fact that the easiest way to get notoriety and thus extend the longevity of your account is to keep throwing yourself into as many controversies as you can so people will bump up the viewership of your videos, even if it means they get disliked to absolute fucking hell. You don't even understand why he's doing it.
I don't know for sure, but it seems that Hunter may have been suspended for this. Or at least had to delete a tweet or two. Hunter got absolutely dogpiled for his support of me. He's gotten so much hate from this whole ordeal. Make sure you go send him some love. He is truly one of the people in this space who I have the most respect for, and just an all-round cool dude. I know that I didn't really discuss much about the specifics of the treatment for pedophilia, but if you want to look into it, there are lots of studies that have been done. I've heard that Germany has been having a lot of success with what they're doing. I know I didn't really touch an awful lot on that in this video myself. I prefer to focus on the conversation around the disturbing rhetoric that people use about pedophilia, and the desperate need for the destigmatization and humanization of these innocent people. I do believe that is probably all I have to say on this matter, or at least it is for now. I'm going to be working on a video about the YouTuber ShoeOneHead and her rhetoric and obsession regarding this matter. That will hopefully be up sometime in the next few days. If you enjoyed my perspective, my analysis, and my commentary, please leave a like on this video. Drop a comment down below, I'll be reading them all and replying where appropriate. Please subscribe and ring the bell. I've been doing daily uploads, so there's a lot of content for you to check out. And just one more thing, if I may ask this of you. If you see people posting wood chipper memes or some other form of pseudo-moral...
Yes, because you handled dealing with Cass so fucking well, to the point to where you're totally going to be able to handle talking about June and the potential responses and backlash she might give you. Because we all know that's usually how that shit goes. Someone that cries when someone with nearly 2,000 subs talks to them with a handful of panelists, and you're suggesting that you're somehow going to handle it when someone with 100k, with like 100k subscriber range. Like the hundreds of thousands of subscriber range is somehow going to be someone that you'll be able to handle, okay? Like, what's next? Are you going to start saying, well, you can't post the wood chipper memes. If you see the wood chipper memes, you gotta report those accounts and you gotta cry like I am. Otherwise, you're a bigot. You might as well just say that. Just say that. Just say, don't post memes because someone might cry over them. And then someone's going to commit self-delete when they realize there's something deeply wrong with them that they don't care to get help for. My first thought is, oh well, it's a loss of one human life that might have hurt someone else because of the fact that they couldn't get over their issues. That's not the same thing as someone who didn't do shit wrong, who had nothing at all wrong with them, who was going about their business in life.
Moralistic grandstanding. Please, send them this video. Let's make a change for the better. Also, if you could share this video with your no-map friends, that would be truly appreciated as well. If you are watching this, and you are a map, if you are a non-offending pedophile, I love you. I do. I genuinely care about you. You are not a bad person. You are loved.
Shut the fuck up! Know your fucking place, trash!
He's a racist, bar none. At the end of the day, however, this boy is not my son. Can't you see what it means to me? This boy is not my son. Gage Kirby is an idiot. This boy is number one. Number one, they hate for it, but never makes it fun. Can't you see what it means to me? This boy is not my son. But Gage Kirby doesn't want an education. He just want to go and fight. Create a fight with humanity and divide us all. It's might. That's the whole big problem, though. Ever since I tell you this, you see, we're going to hold him accountable, and
That is the end of the show. We hope you join us next time for more exposure, more stupidity, and more thought-provoking topics. Only on the Ahn ShinAe Show, where your mental fitness is our business. Peace be with you always.